Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's Wednesday. It's 7 o'clock. It's the 1st of May, 2024. And I'm Pommy from Pommy and Oz. You'll know me. You've clicked the link. You're in the channel. I've got the four of us. Paul is running a couple of minutes late from a meeting, and Ian sends his love. Firstly, shout out to my mate, Stevie Lang, Friday. So many happy returns from me, mate. I said I'd give you a shout out, so I've done my part of being a friend. But joining me after his week off last week because he had life, I've got the Everescent, the painter of models, the bringer of joy in my heart, the great man himself, Mr. Leckdog. Leckdog, how the bloody hell are you?
It's hard to follow up that intro, mate. But no, it's good to be back. I can't be a permanent fixture. I'll be in Europe for a few weeks at some point. So I'm just letting everyone else develop. You know, I'm the old head. We get some of the young guns like Bucky to come through and develop. And it'll be good for the long run of the show.
Right. Are you the Mark Murphy? Is that what
yeah,
you've done?
I just want you to nurse me as the sub to 300, please.
Well, I will do my best, my good friend. And also joining us, a man that is always punctual and has never missed a game. He's becoming our own Mr. Reliable Patrick Cripps, the great man himself, Mr. Heathbuck from My Blue Heaven. How are you, Mr. Bucky?
Yeah, g'day, Pom. G'day, Lecky. G'day, everyone. Yeah, I'm probably more along the lines of Matthew Cottrell, I reckon. Just brought in off the rookie list and thought I'd sort of make way for some other talent, but I'm just holding my place at the moment. So, yeah, good to be a permanent fixture of this wonderful show, Pommy. Looking forward to tonight. There's always a little bit of extra spice in selection and in discussion after a disappointing loss. So there'll be no different tonight. We'll debate it as we always do. So it should be interesting to see what you lads have come up with.
I'm looking forward to it. I really do enjoy the concept of the show because I find that when you do them horrible prediction videos, there's no one fighting you. So it makes sense to pick your 23. It's quite good having three voices. And we said three voices coming in late from the pine, our little super sub, the man who's giving us a brief 5 minutes, the great DN Jumper Punch Untitled podcast. He's probably got another podcast I haven't mentioned. He's wearing a scarf indoors. If he doesn't take it off, he won't appreciate the heating at SEN. Paolo, how are you doing?
Oh, mate, I'm fantastic. Much better for having been in your company, gentlemen, tonight. And I'll tell you what, it's a good start to the week because we've had one rivalry victory with the Gunners getting the job done against those scumbag Spurs. So hopefully we can do it on Friday night. That'd be great.
Didn't take him long to mention Arsenal. I tell you, I had a little private bet with myself how long it would take for you to mention it, and you surpassed it by about 12 minutes. Well done.
Thank you.
Is that the big local rivalry? Is it the Tottenham v Arsenal? Yeah. Is it Arsenal v Chelsea, or has it always been? Been Tottenham?
It is huge. It's huge. It's huge. It's huge. It's massive. So, no, we're all very content. It's been a big win for us. So, yeah, there was a bit going on in the away end at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. So, yeah, happy St. Totteringham's Day is what they call it when Tottenham can no longer officially finish above Arsenal on the Premier League table, and it's become quite a staple in Division 1 in the Premier League. So hopefully the Blues can turn that into something over the next few decades too against Collingwood. That'd be great.
Well, Faz says there's a lot of Samir Nasri about you. I mean, I hope you weren't late because you were doing a Samir Nasri and getting some rather buxom lady to feed you Hydrolite.
And I wasn't turning coat either. So there are no other allegiances here. So I'm not going on a rival channel. I'm not going on to Swoop Luke. I'm not going on to. So what's the other one? Saints TV. What's that gentleman's name?
Jake.
Jake. Yeah, that's right. Irrelevant Football Club FC, Roadblock FC. No, nothing like that. So I've come in fired up tonight, gentlemen. I've really come in fired up. No one's safe. No one is safe.
Nobody's safe. Well, we'll get straight into it. Bucky correctly says disappointing loss last week. It's always good doing this show when we get an excuse to axe someone, and we'll start this week with Bucky. We've got 3 changes from your bookie. Take us through it, mate. Take us through this delightful set. He looks quite good, actually, with them ins, doesn't it?
Yeah, look, I'm a little bit sort of sceptical on bringing Cunningham in, I must admit, but I feel if he's right to go, and we know there'll be a lot of people who say, look, he hasn't played a lot of footy and, it's been a while since he's played, but whether it's the sub or he comes straight into the lineup, it wasn't like he was knocking the door down before he went out. But I don't know. I just feel that we need a little bit of class and a little bit of bite around the ball. Not necessarily someone who's going to win contested possessions, but someone who's going to be quick on the outside, particularly against someone like Collingwood. And I think someone who we can potentially trust in this defensive, I suppose, system and attitude, which we want to take into this game. I feel there's a few guys that have just been hanging on in this team at the moment. And I don't expect to be, seeing massive changes considering what Voss did say in his press conference after the game. He was quite savage on the group, but it was more, I think, on the group rather than individuals. But I just think when you've got, obviously, Chera's just got to come straight in if he's right, and also Cunningham, which I'm, as I said, I'm a little bit sceptical of. But I just think his ability to win the ball on the outside and break away from stoppages and use it pretty well, going inside forward 50, I think it's a good in. And I'm at the point now where I think, and I know this guy hasn't played a lot of footy either, that we've got to see Chincotta in this team. I think he'll relish the opportunity to play against Collingwood. And I think the theme this week is all around defence and team defence, not necessarily bringing in players to sort of bolster that back 6 or 7. It's more what we're doing when we haven't got the ball. I think he's just a really disciplined player who has got some good attributes on the outside as well. And he's relatively, although he hasn't played a lot of football, I feel he's pretty trustworthy in the way he goes about it from a, I suppose, an attitude point of view. And I've got no doubt, boys, that what Voss says was about application. I don't know how you read that press conference, but the more I listened to it, there was a sense of confidence the way he spoke, that if we'd have got the defensive aspects of that game right, then we would have won that game. It wasn't so much that we didn't execute in front of the big sticks. It was more about we didn't execute when we didn't have the ball. So I think there will be changes in that aspect. And I think the 3 players we bring in will help us with that, because I feel they are smartish footballers. I feel, bringing in Chincotta will just add that real toughness and that bite. And the other 2 boys I trust will come in and play a role for the team. And the guys I've left out, obviously Binns, I can't see him. I feel he was a late in anyway. As a sub, didn't get an opportunity to show much at all. I mean, you come on in the last quarter in a game like that, it was always going to be a tough ask. I can't see him breaking into this team. Not yet anyway. And it's probably pointless even starting him as a sub again. Carroll just hasn't done enough at all. I know he kicked a nice goal on the weekend, but I feel like he's probably been on the chopping block for a period of time until we get Chera back and also Cunningham. And young Cowan, I don't necessarily think he did a lot wrong, but I think it's time we brought in Chincotta to replace him and let him go back to the VFL, build his craft. I think obviously, I think we're carrying Ollie Hollands a little bit at the moment. And I don't think we can carry 2 second-year players in this team in such an important game against a well-drilled Collingwood unit. So them are changes. And if we had some other players available, who knows? There could be some other changes as well. And there's quite a few guys that are particularly lucky to hold their spot, including Matt Hoey's. Matt Hoey's always going to start as the sub, and a couple of other boys who really need to lift their impact.
Bucky, you've got Owies there as sub, and I love that. we started the season with small forwards as subs, and I feel like, I don't know how you feel and the rest of the lads in the chat feel like, but the last couple of games it feels like the sub has done like sweet fuck all. Where them first 3 or 4 games, it felt like you really noticed the subs come on. They seem to lift, particularly them forward line. It really lifted them, and I don't think it's any surprise they were the highest ranked pressure changes of them games. When they've come on, they've shot up to 230, 240. But the last couple of weeks, it's felt like no offense to Jackson Binns, he didn't have much time, but like you hardly noticed him. And the week before, we hardly noticed. Do you think maybe the small forward as the sub is the plan? Because I think always big game, Collingwood, 20 minutes, the game's all tied. I would back that guy to score 2-3 goals.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. I think, I think his game on the weekend was really poor. I know it's a really difficult position to play, but, it was really highlighted, our small forwards. I think it is a bit of a deficiency. And he's one player that's obviously, like most players build their game around confidence, playing their role for the team, but he just couldn't get involved. Came off, which allowed Binns to come on. So he's played 3 quarters. And he is that type of player, like Fantasia, if you wanted to bring him in and play the same role, that can come on because he can be a bit of an impact player. And I think he's the type of player that can rise to I suppose the occasion if it is tight. It is close. And I feel also if we have to pull the change really early, he's more than capable of coming on in a first quarter or, second quarter, wherever that may be. So does it leave us a little bit short in regards to, pardon the pun with the shortness, but does it leave us a little bit toothless in regards to our small forwards? Not if we bring Cunningham in. I think Elijah Hollins has done well in regards to hitting the scoreboard. Cottrell is saying. So we've got some genuine goal kickers there. And guys that can apply some pressure and are pretty smart. So, I feel like that could be the move to start Owies as the sub. If not, maybe he's out of the team altogether and they go back to Orazio Fantasia, because what we do know is that Michael Voss, he rates him. He rates Orazio Fantasia in regards to what he brings to the team, whether it's leadership, high footy IQ, not quite sure. But, yeah, it wouldn't surprise me to see Fantasia come into this team, but I'm not particularly sold on him at the moment. I'm not putting a line through him by any of the stretches of the imagination, but I'd actually like to see him miss through illness last week. I'd like to see him now go back to the VFL and find some real form.
I agree with that on Fantasia. We've been told a lot about how impactful and good he can be. I was pretty hesitant on him as a signing to begin with, but we haven't seen it. So go back to the VFL, where I think we only had, 3 or 4 AFL listed players play last week. Orazio, go back to the VFL and actually show me you're a good player instead of just telling me about it. I don't mind this team at all. I think you're right with I personally backed in Cowan over Cincotta, but I do think it's going to be, that's probably the discussion. It's one or the other. I don't think it's both, because I reckon you're right about the defence. I think Vossi was fuming that we gave up 118 points to Geelong. And to be honest, the 2 weeks before that, where we gave up 98 and 100 as well, we're a defensive first team. That's what we keep getting told. And for the first 4 weeks, we saw it, but I don't think he's loved the last few weeks. And I think you're right, Bucky. I think it's application. So whoever's in that.
I mean, the tone. I think it's the tone and the I suppose when he said the ease of which they were able to not only exit their D50, but also what happened inside our defensive half as well was just it's just stunk of a team that really, I actually see us at the moment, I probably use the word, we're a really sexy team. We're exciting to watch. It almost feels like as much as we're hated by the opposition, we're a real sort of a team that people like to watch because we are exciting. And I feel like we've got away from that defensive sort of aspect of the game because it feels like we're a little bit all duck and no dinner. I've got no doubt, even if we can't get it back to what it should be, that we're still capable of winning this game through dominating clearances and because we've got such firepower in our front half. But in terms of moving forward, as the season progresses, once we get to the pointy end, we're going to have to tighten up the defensive aspects of this game because it's not sustainable. It really isn't. And I don't see it necessarily as just a problem with our 6 or 7 defenders. It looks a mess. No. I see it more, and I'm pointing fingers at not just guys like Zach Williams, but I'm also going to be taking close looks at guys like Elijah Hollands and even Matthew Cottrell and those guys who are playing those high half forward roles, even our wingers. What are they actually doing when we haven't got the ball? Where are they setting up? Because so many times on the weekend against Geelong, as much as we laid, 21, 24 tackles inside 50, once the ball got out of their back half, we were toothless. I mean, the ball got out the back, and I don't know about you guys, but every time they exited, it felt like they were going to score. And it actually felt like that against GWS in the first half against them until we got on that ballistic run. And it definitely felt like that against Adelaide. And that's why I was never confident in that game against Adelaide, even when we sort of hit the front and got 17 points up. I never was comfortable in that game because of the ease in which they were able to exit our forward half and then score once they got inside 450. So it's got to be a tightening up of that. And people are saying it's a personnel thing. I can acknowledge that once you get Gov and Sard back, that they will help in terms of transition. But that, to me, isn't the problem. I think it's right across the board in regards to that pure application of what are we doing when we haven't got the ball, where are we standing? Yeah. Because let's face it, guys, it's a buy-in. Defence is a buy-in, and we've got away from that. And that's why he pointed it out. Last year, it was all about, if you remember last year, Voss's, I suppose, messaging in his press conferences when we were going through that really bad patch where we lost, what did we lose, 6 in a row, whatever it was. He was saying we were getting feedback from the opposition. Remember that? He was always talking about we're getting some feedback from the opposition. Well, now he's actually saying we're getting feedback from ourselves. You know, it's all about us. And to me, that's a sense of confidence that if we can fix it, we could go a long way, but unless we want to buy into it, it's not going to happen. It's as brutal as that. I can't see us progressing much further than the bottom rungs of the 8 and play. You know that if we can't fix that part of the game, it's just not sustainable at all.
Well, Pom, after those first 4 weeks or so, we were talking about maybe this team is just an ugly team and we need to grind out wins. And then we've gone to this sort of high-scoring triple-figure 3 games in a row, and it's basically a coin flip of whether we win or lose. We know, Bucky, to your point, we know we can score when we need to. We know we've got 5 or 6 goals in Harry and Charlie every match. But I'm with you. That application, particularly through the midfield, needs to, and that high half forward, as you said, is where we need to really focus. I think, given the lack of midfield that it looks like Collingwood will have this week and our firepower, I think we should get the win, even with only a couple of tweaks. But I agree with you in terms of the long run of the season. I think that defensive focus needs to come back, and it needs to come back pretty quick.
Yeah, well, I've sort of got my preview out pretty early this week, and I saw the Degoe and Tom Mitchell, which are big outs for them. There's no doubt about that. But I think Collingwood, you know, whether they replace both those boys with pure midfielders. I know Fid McRae got a lot of it in the VFL, 31 touches, and they actually have announced this afternoon that they're going to debut Lockie O'Sullivan, or is it Lockie Sullivan, who was picked up from Footscray VFL, 26-year-old. He's a ball magnet, really hard worker. I've got a feeling they might almost probably think that they're going to concede a little bit like Geelong, really, in the end. They were conceding that they were getting beaten up around the ball with the dominance of Pitnet. But it wouldn't surprise me if they bolster their running half-backs and bring in maybe a Markov and really try and expose us defensively. That's probably my train of thought. Because I don't think, if we can be on top of our game, we get Chera back, I just don't think they can match us in the middle of the ground. So I think they'll have some real plans behind the ball against us on the weekend. That might be bringing in some speed with Markov. So watch this space. I'm probably wrong, but that's probably my train of thought at the moment.
I love the press conference, Bucky, and I thought about his press conference quite a bit when I did my team and was trying to get in the psyche of what it is. But I said it in my review. I watched your preview today and you touched on it as well, the team ethic and the application. It's not one person. I felt after watching that presser, I had two things. One, I think the fans need to realise now we're not a maybe 8 side. Voss is the real deal. We want us to be a top 4 side. The standards has changed. It's not sneaking in. It's ploughing in and being a flag favourite. And the other thing is the standards are everyone defends. Do you know what I mean? Everyone defends. Whether you're a half forward, whether you're a full forward, he wants that team defence. And that's what I took out of it. Voss was angry. I felt like Voss was probably pissed off with 20 of the 22 when they walked off the field. I think, and when I did the review, I said that I think there's so many people you could pick on, which actually gives you a little bit of hope that so many people have made mistakes. You can actually fix that. Usually it's where do we go from here? So I loved his presser, Bucky. I thought it was phenomenal.
Yeah, I thought there was an air of, I suppose, it wasn't negative at all. I think there was an air of confidence in regards to, okay, this is what we've put in place. Okay, this is, they didn't go in with a plan to just be all duck and no dinner, win clearances and dominate, get territory. They actually had a plan in place and they didn't adhere to it. So the microscope definitely does go on us. It just doesn't only go on the team and the players. It also goes on the coaching staff because at the end of the day, they're responsible for delivering the message and getting into the heads of the players that they've got to be selfless. I looked at Geelong and we were just miles apart in just being a selfless football team. Someone asked me, I can't remember who it was, but someone asked me who hadn't watched the game. They were interested in how the Conning boys went, who was better. When I sort of said, well, look, Tom was okay. He had 15 odd possessions, 16 hit outs. He was busy. But I hardly noticed Sam. I hardly noticed him. I didn't even check his stats. But from a naked eye, I would have thought that Tom had the better game. But then I listened to Chris Scott's press conference and I listened to some of the other players talk about Sam De Koning playing his 50th game and how wrapped they were with his selfless game and his ability just to do the team thing and allow guys like Zach Guthrie to play to their strengths. And I reckon he played an absolute perler of a game just because he was so selfless. He didn't need to be taking in the set grabs. He didn't need to be winning possessions. He just did his job to a T. And I feel like we're not that team defensively at the moment. I mean, and I know we're pointing the finger at Zach Williams, but he's just one example of a guy that was playing like a cowboy. The amount of times he allowed his player to get out the back, he pressed up too high, he wanted to get on the end of balls and be sexy and go inside forward 50. He was all at sea. And that's just being brutally honest, and he's not the only one. So if supporters can't handle the fact that those guys, every player on this team have got a job to do and play their role defensively, and they think just because you've come off an ACL, you got liberty to not do the things that, within the fabric of the football team, then we're barking up the wrong tree here. You don't need to be coming off an ACL and not adhering to what the game plan is. He wasn't the only one, but I understand the criticism of David King and highlighting Zach Williams. I know it's difficult when you highlight one player because it was more than just him. But you could see at that ground, Paul, I had great vantage point from where I was sitting behind the goals. I could see he was just doing what he wanted to. Yeah. And it wasn't just defending, you know what I mean? Like, you often think, defenders, you got to stand next to your man and you got to strong ball from behind and all this type of stuff. It was more what that was doing when we didn't have the ball and trying to fucking spoil contests and be over aggressive, get involved where he didn't need to get involved. It was just a really loose performance, and it was little wonder that Geelong just exposed us. They fucking exposed us, and it was frustrating. And I didn't buy into the fact that we didn't execute, and if we'd execute, we'd have won. I just didn't buy into that at all, because I just thought if we'd have tightened up defensively, we would have won that game. And I think that's the way Michael Wazze saw it. And that's why I think there's an air of confidence with him that maybe if we can just get back to the basics with that, we'll be okay. But it's easier said than done, But if it continues, maybe it is a system problem. Maybe it is a system problem. Maybe the message is getting through. Because it's funny, isn't it, guys? And I mentioned this in my preview today, and this is not about starting to go hard on Michael Wazze, but 2.5 years ago when they sacked David Teague and they sent an email out to us, the supporters, about the internal review. The only thing that we really got was the fact that the team couldn't buy into the defensive side of the game. And it almost feels like right now, what are we in, round 8 of 2024, when we are seriously trying to contend for a premiership, that we're talking about a defensive sort of aspect of this team, which is almost appears non-existent at the moment, which is a shame, because we are a really aggressive team forward. Like, we are fucking dangerous. And we'll win plenty of games like that. We'll continue to win games like that, but not against the best teams in the competition. Not at all. And go listen if you want to hear this type of stuff. Go listen to someone like Stephen May, and go listen to Jake Lever, and the way they're so hard on each other defensively. They're fucking yelling at each other. They're hard on each other. It's nothing personal. It's just about buying into the defensive aspects of the game. That's my rant over and done with, boys.
No, I love it, Bucky. And obviously, Vossi said it himself. The standard now is we beat Geelong, which I took literally. That means we're a flag favourite. That's how we judge ourselves. We judge ourselves on winning flags. We don't judge ourselves on ladder position. It's winning the fucking thing. So I agree, Bucky. We've got to expect perfection, because that's how you win a flag.
Yeah, and just getting the balance right. Getting the balance right. As I said, we've got some fantastic traits, and one of those is that ability to lift. And once we get on a roll, we are fucking hard to stop. Those last 4 goals we kicked late in that game were exceptional, but the ease of which they were able to kick the sealer was typical, of what we've probably become over the last month or so. So I still think if we'd have probably faced a tougher and better Fremantle, the result would have gone their way that day as well. So it's just, it swings and roundabouts in that regards. We'll win plenty of games if we continue along this line, but at the pointy end, can't see that now.
Well, I mean, that being said, Paolo, you've swung the axe a little bit, only a little bit. Take us through the 23 that are going to bring us 4 points against the Scum.
I don't think I've quite got the axe out. I think I've used the butter knife for this one. I've used a different spread for this type of game. I like Carroll as the sub. I think he has been impactful when he has come on as sub, and we see the Brisbane game as an example there. So he's come out just because Chera comes in clearly, and I think Cunningham has to come in to give us something ahead of the ball as well, because we're lacking. I don't know. We're just lacking a bit of output from that type of size forward of centre as well. And I think the beauty about him is that he can give us a point of difference through midfield as well if we need it. I think stacking the midfield against Collingwood is the way to go in this match. And yeah, Cowan managed as well. Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think from my perspective, and I think, Bucky, you speak about execution too. And for me, I say that we didn't execute, but that also, team defense also fits that bill as well. And I'm talking actually execution of your defensive duties too. So not just ball in hand, but without the ball as well. You've got to execute without ball in hand too. And we just didn't do that on the weekend. So I don't think, and I think that the two microcosms into the way we're defending as a team at the moment were that Lewis Young, Ollie Henry review mark scenario where Young just thought the ball was going to be a dead ball, and he half switched off for the contest, which is just not good enough. You can't do that. You can't do that at VFL level, let alone AFL level. And then Zach Williams getting pressed under the ball by Stengel for that mark almost in the goal square. Those two moments there are just it's one of those scenarios where you ask, are you really, truly, properly switched on for these deep, high-pressure defensive moments? And we probably weren't on the weekend too. So I don't think this team doesn't have it in them to be able to flick the switch with regards to team defense, because we've seen it pop up in bits and pieces. I thought our second half against GWS defensively was enormous when they got on top of us in that game. So, and I also think as that back six as well. I mean, look at that back six. How many times? I mean, outside of, Zach Williams has barely played, but I know once you cross the white line, there's not really an excuse, right? Clearly, but Kemp is inexperienced. Boyd is inexperienced. Zach Williams has missed a lot of football. Wiedering and Young are both, almost playing the same role, and Young's in by call of necessity, really. And then outside of that, it's just, I think defensively, our problem is up the field. I think our smalls have not been able to lock the ball in our front half often enough. And I know we had 66 inside 50s on the weekend, but I feel just to the eye test, and I don't know if you feel this way, but I feel that the ease with which opposition are able to move the ball from the back half and outside our offensive 50 is it's just too easy at the moment. And that shouldn't be the case, especially at this time of year. So I don't know. For me, it's just mindset. And that's why I think Vossi was a bit peeved on the weekend, because it's not for lack of ability with these blokes. We've seen these blokes be able to defend well before as a team. So I don't know. Maybe there's an air of confidence about the fact that they think that they can get it done, and they have been able to get it done this year with so many injuries. So I don't know. Maybe the boys went in a bit too confident, and maybe they went into this game a little bit too cock-a-hoot. Maybe that was the case. Maybe that's why he was a little bit pissed off. Don't know.
I remember having a beer with Jacob Whittaker at one of the functions when we sponsored Domaku as a channel, and I asked him a question: what's different under Vossi being a defender than what's different under Teague? And one of them he said was the ability to have a breather. And he was like, when it was Teague, the system we played, the pressure came from the midfield, not the forward half. And he was like, it was just slingshot, one after another. And he talked about the North Melbourne game in brutal honesty and saying that the coaches looked at his game and said to him, you actually played pretty well. We're in, because he won something like 80% of his one-on-ones. It was like 22 one-on-ones, though, against Larkey. So in a normal world, when you've beaten your key forward, you're getting a hero's welcome. But he said when they brought the game down, it was just literally so easy to go down that channel to target Larkey. So he had no hope, because it was like literally, I've spoiled it, marked it, and it's back again. And there was no time to set and have a breather. I think you've got a point, like alluding to what Bucky said and you. I do think at times, look at the first quarter, it was our lowest pressure rating across the ground all season. And I was like Bucky, I was watching that game on the watch along. And I was like, I don't think I've seen a side walk out of the back half so quickly. Like, it was almost monotonous, that kick. Zach Guthrie, inbound, was actually getting boring to watch, because I was like, surely someone is going to see that. But it feels like it's too late, doesn't it? Sometimes it feels like it's too late. They react just a little bit slower to what they're trying to achieve.
Yeah, Now go on, Bucky. Go on.
I think you make a really good point, Paul and Pom. If I go back to the game against Adelaide, and it was sort of similar scenarios in that game, and I know I got stuck in, because I was at that game, and I got stuck into Jacob Wiedering because he felt like he was like 10 metres behind Tex Walker every time, and that was probably right to the point that you just made then. He just didn't have time to get a breath. He was gassed, you know what I mean, because there was just a lack of pressure through the midfield, lack of pressure from our forward half, and every time the ball was exited, it was just coming back. And he was that defend. You're right. Defenders need time to reset. They need time to get their breath back. It's not always the case in a close game. You've got to find something. But if you sort of look back to that game, you felt like he was all at sea, Jacob Wiedering. But if that's the point, it's hard. You know what I mean? If the ball's just rebounding that quickly, you're probably going to be 5-10 metres beyond your opponent.
I feel, and my fear with the whole defensive scenario is that I don't want them to get into a point where they feel that they need to start tinkering and changing a lot of the way in which we apply ourselves defensively. I don't want them to start making that such a big emphasis, because I think it already is. When you're in this premiership mold, defense has to be almost at the forefront of what you do to create your offense. But my concern is that I don't want them to get to this point where they're so focused on defense that high press just goes away and they start to just sag back that little bit. And remember last year, Pommy, when we were losing our minds over, people saying, we can't score, but we're defending well. And then Voss said, no, we're not defending well because we had 18 blokes in our back half. I don't want that to be the scenario for us. I don't want it to be to a point where we focus so much on our defense that other aspects of our game start to lose tack. And I think for me, with the way that we play such an aggressive style, you're almost beholden to it. When you veer away from that sixth gear in that high press and that aggressive style, if you start to back away from that, for lack of a better phrase, you're stuffed, because you're neither here nor there. You're in no man's land. So it's either you're all in with it all, right, and you have to defend and be even more aggressive than what you already are. And then there also comes a point in time where if you start to tinker going back the other way, that you could almost affect your score as well. And you start to go into your shell a bit. So that I'm just concerned that if they start to focus too much on team defense, that it's going to hurt other aspects of our game. So that's my only fear with it at the moment, and why I don't want them to tinker a lot with regards to personnel and the way we set up, because different teams are going to set up differently against you. We know Collingwood are going to try to get us with their speed around the forward line, and their small forwards and their medium forwards are a bit of an awkward matchup. But I do think we have players back there that are able to go like for like with them. So as much as it's a sample size of 6 or 7 games, I do think that we have to look at it in its totality from the Essendon game last year and say, okay, well, we know these blokes, when they do apply themselves mentally, defensively, we're really, really strong as a team. And now I think it's just about getting back into that mindset and actually, as you said, Bucky, buying into it. Because defense, who wants to defend? Everyone wants to get out of the ball, don't they?
Do you feel that what you've just said then, in your concern maybe is we will go back the other way too much? And it almost feels like we are either one way or the other way, that this is still very much an immature team and potentially an immature coaching staff. And it almost feels like at times this group takes things really literally. It was all around the fact that our clearance game had just disappeared. You know what I mean? And all of a sudden that is just gone through the roof. And the other parts disappeared. So a mature team would definitely be able to find that balance. So I'm not just talking about the coaching staff here, but I'm also talking about, I think Patrick Cripps is a wonderful leader. But maybe the footy IQ of this team, which is always thought to be question marks on our footy IQ. And when you take things to the extreme, it's almost like you take things literally, and you can never find that balance because I don't want to call these guys not smart enough. It's just like it feels like we are still very much, and I use this term all the time, still very much wet behind the ears, and that was definitely exposed against a really well balanced Geelong team on the weekend. Because let's face it, they've been coached by the same bloke who's an exceptional coach for a very, very long time.
Yep.
It's ingrained, everything's ingrained in them. And I don't want to make excuses. It feels like we're just always trying to find our way.
I think.
We're searching for that balance. When you're an immature team with potentially guys who haven't got great footy IQ, that might be the case. I mean, you're talking about the situation with Lewis Young. Would you say Lewis Young's got great footy IQ?
No.
I think it's a really good point, Bucky, on the maturity of the team. So on our list, Paddy Cripps has played the most games. He's played 190 games. And he lost about the first 140 of those games. So he's our most experienced player. Then it's Adam Sard, who started at Gold Coast, went to Essendon. They didn't do anything. And then it's like George Hewitt. And I would argue that he's the one that week in and week out maintains his cool and just does his job. So I think there's probably a good shout in that because in terms of age, we're a little bit older than some people might think in terms of our best 23. But in terms of experience, we've had a lot of losses to our experienced leaders. So, that takes a while to turn that around if you can.
Yeah. Do you know what I feel? So the Adelaide game for me was the concern, right? Now I'm looking at these past two games and I'm thinking, well, GWS, Geelong, Carlton are all teams that have serious firepower, right? And GWS conceded a hell of a lot against us. We conceded against them. High-scoring affair. Geelong conceded a hell of a lot against us and conceded a lot of opportunities against us, and we did the same as well. So it could also be a case of, and I know Voss spoke about defence as well, but it could also be a case of that's just the way the game state was because there are different game states for different types of rounds and different games. So the way the game state was, it was just one of those high transition-based, high-scoring games. It could very well just be that.
Yeah.
It could very well just be that three teams have gone head-to-head over the last 2 weeks, GWS, Carlton, and Geelong, and they've just kicked the lights out. That's what it feels like to me. So I'm not as concerned. My concern is what I mentioned before, is that if they start to focus too much on defence, that other aspects of our game are going to start to go away. You create wicked problems. You focus on one problem, you try to come up with a solution, and then this problem arises, that problem arises, that problem arises. So I would tread with caution. That's what I would do. I would tread with a lot of caution.
Good point. Excellent point.
So with that being said, I thought long and hard about this, and I hear what everyone's saying on the panel, and I love this conversation. I think it's good. I mean, I think people need to remember as well, Carlton are probably the most changed side over 3 years. If you watch Voss's 3 years, I always think, use a golf analogy from something I really understand, coaching high-level players. You've got to keep DNA. If you don't keep DNA of what they are and you start making a mechanical golfer, they'll never be able to do it under pressure. They have to have some level of themselves. And I think a lot of the position, I thought Bucky nailed it with positioning. I think there's a little bit of the old way stuck in them. And I want the team to give themselves to this system. I feel that sometimes some of the midfielders, particularly the wings, they're trying to look for the overlap run, but the halfbacks who have been there 5 years still remember never cross the halfway line. And then it exposes that gap in behind, which Geelong, GWS, just And then I also would say this, GWS and Geelong are the two the most prudent defences. We absolutely smashed them. We were scoring at will. So it's that little 1%. So that being said, when I picked my team, I was like, we've got to train. We've got to rob someone to pay the debt. So unfortunately, after 6 weeks of defending him, I've reluctantly got rid of my boy Ollie Hollands. The reason being, I think the way that Matt Cottrell's been, pressure acts and selflessly working, running hard again last week for very little reward at halfback. Let him play in the wing, be the pressure guy there. He's got the running power. And then Elijah and Matt Kennedy, every time Matt Kennedy slides forward, feels like he's got to go. He's got that pinch hit in the midfield. Other change, big change, is Pom Cotter, but I'm playing him as a forward. Now, the reason why, he's been heavily deployed there in the VFL and on the midfield. We're missing Fogarty. When I watch Durden, it's like he's looking at Carroll, always, and saying, both of us have got to do Fogarty's tackles, so that means we don't attack. But when I've looked at Durden's record, when Fogarty's been there, or when Motlop's been there, deployed as the defensive guy, Durden's kicked 2 goals. So Chincotter's there purely get 10 tackles. One of you defends, the rest of you attacks. But Chincotter's going to be judged on that. And then the only other change might surprise people. I watched the VFL, and honestly, if you ever want to remember the first time a girl or a boy dumped you and broke your heart, watch the VFL, because I had flashbacks from Freya telling me it's not her, it's me. I had a tear in my eye, absolutely beaten left, right, and centre. But Moya, I've got to give credit, worked his arse off, presented selflessly, made the tackles when he had to. And let's be honest, it probably was about 7 inside 50s for Carlton that game. He was working tirelessly, and the two-way running from him, joining the midfield, and then selflessly running back forward, knowing they'd turn it over, was incredible. And he took his goal well. He had nothing to do for 2 hours. And then he made the lead again, got the mark, kicked the goal. So I want him to be the sub, and I really like the idea of the sub. And I looked at how Binns was played. I just thought to myself, if that was Ashton, that would have been better, because he would have appreciated that high ball. Because let's be honest, going back to the point of shit positioning, there was twice Binns found himself on the wing with Cameron. Do you know what I mean? And bigger players let that happen. There's a passage of play where he runs past him, where 2 of the defenders run past him and don't just say, fuck off. It's going to end in disaster. So a bit of selflessness. So Ashton comes in. Aside from that, I have tried to go with a team that I think the only way that Collingwood can win this is going out wide. So let's put Cottrell there. We don't lose anything defensive. He's been playing well. And we've got a really attacking team. So I'm fighting defense with attack. Make them go deeper. Make them defend.
I wanted to just go back to your point that you raised initially, Pommy, about the gap between our halfbacks not going past the halfway line, and that sort of the defensive area of the centre square. And I think you raise a great point there as well. And this is what I was getting to, is that when you play that high press, because ultimately that's what's going to win you premierships. You can't win flags sitting back. It just doesn't work, right? You're never going to win flags playing that way, right? So my ideology with it is, if you are that little bit percentage off with that aggressiveness in your defense, you're going to be exposed. And you mentioned the gaps in between midfield and defense, and that's where Geelong really hurt us going the other way. And if you to use it, how can you can kind of compare it, because the principles are still the same, right? So you look at the 2 teams that are dominating the Premier League at the moment, Arsenal and Manchester City. What do their defenders do? Their defenders are playing in midfield, right? So their centre-backs and their wing-backs are playing in midfield and making lines of 5 up front, right? And it takes balls for centre-backs and pure defenders to be able to roll up the field and risk space out the back. But what that does, when you fully commit to that, the opposition's choked, and it almost takes a miracle for them to be able to get out the back and work the ball forward without them turning it over. And that's my concern, is that press is just half a step off. And you said they need to completely and utterly sell themselves into it and completely buy into it. And that's why I don't want to make wholesale changes to the whole lineup and the whole defensive duty, because I actually think it works. That it's just a slight little application thing that we need to completely get right. And I like your point on Moya as well. He was starved of opportunity in the VFL on the weekend. And I think he had a moment a couple of weeks ago where he gave away that silly 50-metre penalty. I don't know if you remember it. I think it was against Collingwood. Yeah. He kind of like threw the ball back and he got a bit frustrated. And I think he slapped the ball, or I think he open palm one of the Collingwood players, and he kind of got his head down. But since then, I was a bit worried and thought, is that going to maybe do you in for a week or two? But he responded so well from that. So his work rate's been phenomenal the last few weeks, and he would be a point of difference up front for us. And he's played different positions in the VFL as well, which I've noticed too.
Yeah, no, I agree. And that would be my message to the boys. One of the greatest coaches I know, my pop, when he used to teach me things in golf and I couldn't quite get it, he used to say, have you tried not being shit? And I know that sounds really basic, but sometimes you've got to give yourself to the learnings. You've got to just risk fucking up to do it. And that's usually the restriction from, if you've ever taught anyone anything, your kids or anything, the stopgap is the indecision of, do I, like when you teach your kid to ride a bike, it's that indecision. Do I keep pedaling knowing I won't fall over? Do I trust it? Because the faster I pedal, the more I balance. So that's why I tried to set this team saying, right, you've got less excuse. You lose a winger. One of you is a permanent winger. We've got no rotation. You've got to go deeper. You've got to wrestle the ball back. You've got to lock it in. No excuses. All of you now are one-dimensional role players. So I've just tried to force the learning, swim or drown.
Correct,
Tom.
Yep, love it.
Well,
love it.
There it is.
Good work. Can't argue with any of that. Beautifully argued.
Lick dog.
And then this is why I was glad, because I was like, I've killed my boy Oliver Hollands, and I was so glad Leckdog killed him, because I was like, I can't be the only one on the show who killed my boy.
Mate, you walked through the door and I had blood all over my hands, and you went, all right, good, we're in this one together.
Thank you, Mrs.
I mean, same reasons for Cotter's in for Hollands. I mean, we'll call it managed. I'm dropping him, and even if it's for 1 week, I don't mind. But I just want a bit more aggression, a bit more defensive stuff. But by pushing Cotters out onto the wing, it meant I want to stretch Collingwood's defence, i.e. have people who can kick goals in the team, which is why Matty always has stayed in there. We also need some defense, some defensive pressure. I think I'm going to believe the story that he was sick last week, and that's why I didn't get into the game. If him and Durden can tackle, they've obviously got guys like Noble and Moore and Dacos who can distribute. We need to put some pressure on them. So Owie stays in the team for me. I've taken Carroll out. I don't mind him as the sub, but I think with Shearer back into the team, it's kind of the Paddy Dow thing from last year. When the midfield's there, he's not a part of it. So I've put him back to the reserves, and I've brought Cunners in as that impact sub, because I think he can be, I mean, any of the small forwards he can, and I'll class him as one of those, can play in that role. Some people in the chat earlier were asking why we weren't giving Cunners a run in the reserves, but I looked through his history, and other than after that 2-year gap, he played a couple of games in the VFL. He's never really had to come back through the VFL, and I think it's that Jack Martin principle where it's like, well, we know what he's going to give us. It's just, is he going to get injured? Well, we'd rather him get injured in the seniors than the reserves. So he comes in. I've kept Cowan in. I think we need some solid defenders in the team. I've liked what he's given. I know he wasn't amazing on the weekend. If it's Chin Cotter and for him as a collective, I don't mind that either. And then Binns, I kept him in the team partially because he can rotate through that wing role if we need him to, partially because I think he can plug a few holes, but mostly just because I'm biased and I like him and I want him to have a run. So I'm not wedded to that as we discuss through it and pick the team. But I mean, I think we've talked about all of these guys to death today. I think we know pretty much where we need to improve and where that might come from in terms of talent. The one thing I'll say on what you guys were talking about a little earlier on that, the halfbacks pushing up higher on the ground, I feel like we're really missing, and he only does it once a game or twice a game, but that Adam Sard basketball rejection thing he does like in the forward half of the ground where they're clearly out and he's just able to jump and get a hand to it. Like
that's the double,
the double rejection.
Glide to the air when he does it.
It just gives us such a burst. And I know it's only one player game, but it just shows his aggression and it's always really high up the ground. And so I think that's a good shout. I think we probably playing a bit more conservative in that respect. But yeah, that's the team.
Any questions, boys?
No one in the back six you considered taking out?
I consider taking out
seven.
Cow. I consider taking out Cowan for Chincotta, but I actually don't mind what Pommy's brought to the table with Chincotta there. I mean, if Zach Williams got rested, I wouldn't be. And this is not shit talking him, but if they rested him, I wouldn't be upset.
Yep.
No, I reckon we pick this team because I'm going to have to jump off soon.
All right, let's do it, mate. Let's do it. Let's do it, mate. Tell you what, where is it? Does that come up on your screen? Because it's stupid.
It's loading.
It's jumped on the third monitor, and I can't move it to the second one for some reason. So that's what I was fiddling about with in the background. I was like, why won't it work? But here we are. We'll go top to bottom. Chat, get ready, defenders. Let dog. I need a defender. And there's
where's my team? I mean, give me the easy one. I'll just take Jacob Whittaker.
I love it. Mr. Paolo.
You know what? I'm going to save this guy because I really like what he's brought to the table. I think he's been super since he's come in, just given the pressure and given his inexperience. Lockie Cowan. He is not phased one iota, this kid. Not phased at all.
We love a little bit of the move now.
Bang.
Mr. Bucky, a defender. Who are we saving? We've got Cowan and Wheaters saved.
Yeah, I have to go for the bloke that kicks the ball in from fullback, Jordan Boyd.
Boydie is saved. You know what? I'm going to save a man that gets zero love. He's under the spotlight. Zach Williams.
Big game coming in for him. Big game, mate. Friday night lights against Collingwood.
He's going to return to form. So, chat, we need two from you. You've got just defenders. You've got Chincotta. You've got who else is there? Kemp. You've got Young. You can throw a selection surprise and put Chincotta there if you want. You've got Kemp. Young and Kemp. Chincotta. Newman, Kemp. Kemp, Newey. Looks like Kemp and Newey have survived. Kemp and Newman. Yeah. Kemp and Newman, chat. Hey, tell you what, it kind of picks itself, that backline, doesn't it?
Bit of love for Chincotta.
It does. I'm going to show my hand because I'll pick at some stage. Young is going to be in this team. But I just want to remember Mason Cox is, I hate him and he sucks, but Jesus, he's just going to stand in the goal square and I know he's going to kick 2 or 3 goals. So I want someone to stand next to him.
Well, if it's not him, it'll be Darcy Cameron.
Yeah, exactly. It'll be whichever one we don't want it to be.
Mr. Legdog, a midfielder.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm going to spanner in the works it and put Cottrell on a wing, and then I'm going to let everyone else deal with the ramifications of that.
You're a dickhead. Legdog,
you had him there too.
Yeah, but I don't want to do it. And Paolo, who are you saving?
Am I saving a winger? I think I am. I'm going to be a bit of a bastard here and save Ollie Hollins.
Oh.
I'll grab me a beer at the game, Bucky. Sorry, mate.
I've wanted to drop Ollie Hollins for so long. Every week I wanted to, and then chance for me just to go put Akers on the wing.
Dear
Patrick Cripps in the middle. Cripper in the middle.
Tell you what, Bucky slowly has converted the selection panel when his opportunity came and Paolo stole it.
Ollie Hollins. Ollie Hollins.
I'm trying to save maligned players this week. Mark Pitternet. I'm buying all the tickets in his resurgence over the last couple of weeks. So chat, we need 2 on ballers. I need a rover and a ruck rover. If we're in the 80s, they're just called followers now. But mate, we've lost it. We've lost that wonderful thing. Walsh and Hewitt. Hey, chat. I'm not even going to take any more votes because you can't mess that up. Really, let's be honest. That is guaranteed. So forwards, Mr. Leckdog. Leckdog.
He must be on mute.
I'll take Elijah Hollins.
Oh,
there we go.
Okay.
Thank you.
I was going to say, why is his mouth moving and nothing's happening? Paolo.
We'll say Big H at centre half forward. Big Harry.
And Mr. Bucky.
Let's bring Cunners onto a half forward flank.
Okay, I'm bringing Chinkota forward pocket. It's an absolute genius idea, chat. And if Voss doesn't use it, tell you what, someone else can. Chat, we need 2 forwards. I need a full forward and a pocket. So, chat, throw them in. Tell you what, you all voted unanimously for Walsh and Hewitt as well. So, well done, chat. So, we need forwards. I need a full forward. Charlie's there. Oh, wait, Mark Smith, he's read the rule book. I love it. Akers, he's tried to save Akers. Charlie TDK, Charlie Owies, Charlie Owies. So Charlie's in. Owies has got 2 votes. It looks like Owies has been saved. Gav, you've got the power, mate.
Charlie and Owies, it is.
Tell you what, that is... someone's getting stiffed here.
Yeah, this is...
Okay, 5-man interchange bench. So here we go. Mr. Leckdog.
Can you scroll up? Who have we got available?
We've got Akers, Binns, Carroll, Cherra, Durden, Kennedy, Moyer, TDK, and Young.
I mean, there's 7 players I want. Okay. Shit. I know I said I was going to take Young very confidently, but now I've seen the list of guys that's available. Oh, shit. Shit. No, I'll take Young. We need the defensive structure to be strong.
Bottled it. Mr. Paolo.
We are going to say, well, you've got to say Black Acres, don't you?
I was surprised. I was surprised Mr. Leckdog didn't save our new Newman. I mean, our new Newns. Mr. Bucky, who was saving?
No, it has to be TDK. Jeez.
We're getting thin, aren't we?
Oh man,
it's tough here because, like, literally, as funny as it was to save Ollie Hollins, it's completely screwed us. I'm going to have to save Adam Cherra. I have to save him. Here we are, chat. This is basically choosing your favourite kid. Binns, Carroll, Durden, Kennedy, and Moyer.
Kennedy's been close to our best midfielder. Like, chucking in the sub is rough.
Kennedy is basically is JSOS without the famous dad, isn't he? He's like the new favourite. So it's got to be. Yeah, see, look, Kennedy by about a landslide.
We're clearly doing the dodgy pick the sub from the field, I reckon, this week. I think we might be doing that.
So Binns, you know what? It hasn't worked out so bad because the vibe from the chat was you all wanted to sack a small forward, and we have sacked a small forward in Durden.
Yep. See?
There you go.
Durden and Binns for Cherra and Cunningham.
Can I pick the sub?
Who do you want to put the sub?
Ollie Hollins.
Not a bad sub, but
channel his Melbourne semi-final performance.
But there it is, chat. Thank you very much for joining us. Leckdog, where will we see you this week?
I think I'm pretty low-key this week. Maybe an article on Code Sports, but no, I'll just be hanging around.
Can't believe you become a sellout and become a journalist, mate.
Mate, if someone pays me, I'll do it. Doesn't matter what it is or how much.
Mate, hey, tell you what, I knew a few people like that at university would do anything for payment, and it didn't end well for them. So there is. Paul, what are you doing this week, mate?
In about 55 minutes, I'll be with you again. So we're going to be pondering And then we have got, I don't even know what we have, to be honest. Something will come up. Just a whole heap of Premier League over the weekend, a whole heap of racing stuff that's coming up tomorrow. Mate, I don't even know where the schedule is at the minute. Yeah, Carlton Collingwood. See you at the ground.
All the links for Letdog and Paolo stuff have just got in chat. And Bucky, what are we doing? You've done your review, your preview very early. So have you got anything else planned this week?
Nah, just the game on Friday night, mate. I'll be there. But yeah, it's always good to get the preview out nice and early. It's a weight off the shoulders. It's one of those ones where you just waiting on it and trying to find a time. But it just feels so good to have it done and dusted. But great show tonight, boys. I've got to run.
All right, mate. Much love. I've put the link in the preview. Go and check that out after this. We will be back in 50 minutes, me and Paolo, for Pommy Ponders. Looking forward to that. Peace, love, and light, everyone. See you next week. Bye.
See you guys. Bye, boys.